I'm Charlotte McLeod with the Investing News Network, and here today with me is Evie Tucker, Director at Metallo Royalty and Streaming. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Great. So let's start by talking about gold. At the end of 2018, you made a call saying you thought we would reach 1,500 for gold this year. When we spoke at PDAC, you reiterated that call, and now we're above 1,400. So are we still on track?
The call looked a little crazy the first time we talked. Now it looks not so crazy.
Yes.
So we are intact. I think we'll hit 1,500. I mean, everybody says when, what day? I don't know. I really thought we would hit it in March when it started moving. We had a little pullback. The pullback now is over, and we're headed like a magnet right towards it. I think we'll go right through it. So, and I don't think we'll have a pullback until then.
So how did we get here, and what's going to push us further?
So I think what's interesting about the gold market right now is that people that have been in there for 20 years don't believe this is a real rally. I mean, even at this conference where we are, you have people that say, well, surely it can't last, and they're demoralized. That's an important thing to notice as an investor because everyone has quit. Whereas go to something like cannabis markets, everyone is riding a high. Okay, so they're making lots of money and everything's working. That's something you want to be careful of, okay? Everybody here is extremely cautious, they're negative, they've years of nothing happening, and that's what you see right before the miracle happens. They say don't quit before the miracle happens. It's happening right now, and you've got to be in this market, okay? Gold's going to hit 1,500, silver's going to hit 20, and there's not going to be a break before that happens. Investors need to really think about that. You're not going to get a chance between now and 1,500. Now, once you move through that, you will have a correction. It's very normal to have a correction. And that's a time when people that missed this move can get involved. But if you're watching this right now, you don't have to miss this move. You can get involved in this right now.
So you mentioned when you first made this call, people were not really on board with that. People didn't think that would happen. So what made you go out and say, all right, this is going to happen?
Because I live in the United States of America, where we have a very entertaining, charismatic leader that most people aren't very wild about. But this guy is very important to watch because he starts attacking the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve made some statements that they were going to take seriously the notion of making the money supply softer. And historically, I'm a student of this Fed. I mean, I've been an economist my whole life, and they never do a little bit of loosening. They start loosening, and they tend to loosen for a while. So to me, that meant here it comes. These guys are never going to let this economy slow down. They're never going to let a real recession like we had in the 80s and the 70s. We had these actual recessions where businesses failed, things were tough. They're not going to let that happen. And what that means for gold is that you're going to kick into a new phase of a new price on gold. I mean, gold's not really something that you speculate on. It's kind of the antidote to this central banking disease that's taking over the world. And central bankers, just so you know, if they had it their way, you would have never even heard of gold. They hate gold because it's something that's totally outside of their control. Now, gold, I think, moves from here. How high will it go? I'm happy to come back and come up with a price. But what we see right now is this move over 1,500. So we saw that when it was 1,250 or something last year. You know, it had a tough end of 2018.
And we don't know when exactly this move will come, but you'll be watching factors like the Fed, like Trump, and that kind of action?
I think it's pretty obvious they'll lower rates 25 basis points Wednesday. I've never seen in my whole career more teasing in the market. Like they've put out stories, should we do 50, should we do 25? It doesn't even matter because once they start that lowering, they're not going to stop that lowering process. So that's a factor. We'll see that happen. We don't need to time it to the day. One thing that I really want people to think about, if you look at the chart of gold, just pull up like a 6-month chart, there's been no break in the action. Once it started moving at the end of May, it gapped up and then it gapped up and then now it's not gone down. It's just sat sideways, which is very telling because it means that the next move is going to be big. So you want to be positioned before that happens, and this is your tip. to go and get that position done. Some people don't know how to take a position. That's for a whole other interview.
Sure. And silver, we often hear that silver, if gold moves, silver moves even higher.
Yes.
What do you see?
Correct. So gold-silver ratio, you can pull this up on Google search, gold-silver ratio. It's the highest it's been in 26 years. And what it tells you is that silver is drastically undervalued to gold. So gold, I think you can get positioned there. With silver, you're at 1650. I'm not going to be surprised at all until we hit 20. I mean, and that's a big move in percentage terms. For the silver miners, an even bigger move.
Okay, and is that $20 this year, or we don't?
I'd be surprised if we finish the year we haven't seen $20 silver.
Okay.
It's possible, but I mean, I'd be surprised.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you mentioned how to take your position. That could take up a whole other interview. I'm going to ask you a little bit about
Sure.
that because you do. You're director at Metalla. I imagine that would be part of your recommendation for investors right now.
It's my largest personal investment. I continue to buy stock. I bought stock almost every week. I bought stock last week. I think it's the best company trading. There's only really 6 royalty companies, and we're the smallest of the 6. And I was involved in getting this company together and raising the money to help them go. I'm very proud about what we've done there. You know, we pay dividends, which is rare, pay them monthly. Why royalties? This is very important. So you need to have some physical gold before you buy any gold mining stock. But the gold mining business is just a horrible business. I mean, there's thousands of companies. They're running around the world, blowing things up, looking for gold in the ground, doing this humble work. And it's really tough to pick the winners. Even when you're an expert, it's really tough to pick the winners. Royalty, you get 1% or 2% of whatever they find on that property forever. And to me, that's very appealing. I mean, it's like having a tax on all the productive activity in a certain predetermined zone. So Metalla has 43 royalties, and whatever happens on those properties, it receives a cut of that. And so my personal opinion to a total novice would be get some physical gold. It doesn't have to be a ton of physical gold. I mean, you can figure out what's right for you. And then buy a royalty stock. I mean, you're not going to find that 1,000 to 1 return that you're hoping for, like a lottery ticket, but you're probably not going to get that anyway. I mean, the royalty is a really hard and fast investment. Look at Franco-Nevada, the biggest royalty company. It went up for 6 years when gold went down. It tells you something. So it's a very, very solid long-term asset. That's where I put my money, and that's what I would consider people look at, you know, when they're trying to make a mining stock investment.
You mentioned the royalty space is very small. How do investors know which company is best for them?
Well, I've already told you about the best
Yeah.
one, so that's easy. But there's not, in my opinion, but 6 major ones. You want to find something that's just focused on gold and silver. You don't want them to say, hey, we're also going to do copper, we're also going to do a little cobalt, and we do all these different things. You got to do one thing and do it really well. And so gold and silver focus only is great. Then you don't want to be in a company that only has 5 royalties or something. I mean, there's a lot of companies that have 1 royalty. I mean, that's not really a royalty company. That's just one asset. And if that mine, something happens there, there's a collapse or someone dies, that production for the company, it's zero during that time. So you're looking for diversity where you have, dozens of royalties that can all pay off at different times. I mean, Franco-Nevada, Royal Gold, these companies were built really off of one lucky asset. I'm not going to say lucky as if it was an accident, but they had one big home run, and when they bought those assets, they didn't know they would be home runs. They thought they were good assets, but it turned out to be huge amounts of gold found on those properties, and that's what launched those companies into 10, 15 billion dollar market caps. Okay, so I mean, that takes a long time to happen. I mean, so as you're looking for a growing royalty company, when the company is adding royalties constantly, you can grow with the company, and you want to get in before it has that big event happen. Okay, so you positioning yourself for luck, I mean, is really the way I like to see it. It's good advice for life as well, by the way.
Okay, that was great. As we wrap up, are there any trends in the market that you would highlight that we haven't spoken about?
In the overall market?
In the overall market. I would say resource market.
Okay, in the resource space, I think the most interesting thing, we've already talked about the gold and silver, so that's everyone's set there, but I would also think about nickel. And nobody, some people say, what, nickel, what, you're going to make U.S. coins? No, it's for electric car batteries. And the new generation of batteries is coming out this year. They have 8 parts nickel and then 1 part of other ingredients, and this is far more than last year. They hold a charge better. I don't want to bore you with the details, but the point is, there's demand for a lot of nickel coming online. Indonesian production and export is changing. No one's talking about this. So what happens when no one's talking about something like that is that the people that get positioned early in the right nickel stocks end up having a huge amount of success, and there's just not that many nickel stocks out there. So I mean, I think by the next time we sit down, we should review that, because I think that's going to be a second half of 2019 story that starts to pop up, and no one's thinking about that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We
Thanks
can
for
leave it
having
there.
me.
Yeah. Once again, I'm Charlotte McLeod with the Investing News Network, and this is E.B. Tucker.